Y'all, and welcome to the Critique Travel Advisor, your one-stop shop to find out about the temperature in the traveling world. So I'm here to bring to you some information concerning my upcoming trip here in January to an Earthship. Yes, you heard me correctly. This Hebrew melanated chick is about to go on an Earthship. This is this year's anniversary trip. Instead of taking it international, we're going to see and check out some of the things we can do right here in the good old US of A. And top of that list, as you can see, oops, spell wrong, is Michael Reynolds Earthships, which is in Taos, or near Taos, New Mexico. So I'm just going to give you a rundown so far. I will share with you once I get there what my experience is like. Right now, this is my pre-traveling expose. And so what I'm going to share with you today is what Earthships are, who Michael Reynolds is, and how I became interested in Earthship biotexture. Again, it's not a whole lot of Hebrew melanated sisters who are on the track or even looking at Earthships as an alternative form of living. But living in these days, we have to begin to think in terms of the long haul. We got earthquakes in diverse places, we have tornadoes, we have hurricanes, and who knows what's next. So we need to make sure that our home is able to accommodate and withstand all of the forces of nature. And so this start me on the journey of looking at this sustainable living option as well as its economic benefits. And so, I had been studying this for years. I had been looking into Earthship biotexture for years, could possibly be for over the past 10 years. But I just never have gone. I never have ventured into actually trying to stay in one and see what that experience is like. So this year, it was like, this is the opportunity to do that. And so we're looking into it now. And so you're going to take the journey on what it's taking for me to get to this Earthship. And I'm going to give you the rundown on what it's going to cost you, or what it can cost you, depending on where you live, of course, in 2023. So first thing I want you to do is look at these Earthships. Now, I know it does look like something that's, out of this world, sort of crazy looking, but hey, I really think that the person who came up with the Earthship concept was really onto something that is really for this time. And so I want you to see some of the pictures. I'm highlighting this particular picture because I want you to see these tires. Notice these tires that are rammed with dirt. This is what makes up the walls of an Earthship. Yeah, I know. So what you see behind these beautiful architecture is these tires, rammed with dirt and then cemented over, or mud, what you call mud clay mixed over. But at any rate, this is what makes up what we would call the insulated part of the Earthship, which basically is a means of helping to allow the earth to kind of cover you. So imagine being in a cave. And I know the thought is, who in the world want to live in a cave? But if you look at this, this is actually kind of neat. Personally, I was quite impressed with the unique design. And if you pay attention to things like these little balls that you see, this is like what you would take like wine glasses, champagne glasses. And instead of brick, he used this, which I thought was just novel. Look how beautiful that is. Of course, it looks like something probably futuristic, right? But it's a great use of recycled material. And I mean, it's a lot cheaper than going to your local Lowe's and trying to purchase bricks to do the same thing. So, I mean, everything is so thoughtfully done. And it was just so impressive. Just if you ever research, and I highly encourage you to, one of the websites you can go to, and we're going to go there now. Earthship. Okay. Oops. Okay. So, sorry. All right, we're there. One place you can go to is Earthship Global, where you can find out about Earthship biotexture. Now, this place features, a community of people who have built this Earthship over here in New Mexico, which is where the concept of Earthships by Michael Reynolds was first put into place. Now, before you get too excited, I hate to burst your bubble, but depending on where you live, this may not be a reality that you can actually sink your teeth into. Meaning that because of permits and zones and all these sorts of things that have to do with bureaucracy and rules, building an Earthship is not something that you can do just anywhere. You have to, of course, go through the same process you do for building any kind of home. And while I think that the style and the uniqueness is cool and all, our neighbors may have other opinions. So that being stated, that is something that you need to know up front as a definite con for those who do not already possess land in which you have the freedom to choose what you can put on your land. But if you're one of those people who live out in the sticks, got over 80 or 100 acres of land, and there's no neighbors foreseeably near you, that this structure could be a potential hazard to their property value, then you'll probably have no problems whatsoever. And if you just happen to be one of those places where there is no public utilities, you can't get access to water, you can't get access to a stable source of electricity, then this is definitely an option that would be worthwhile venturing into, especially if you have the money to invest in it. Now, when I first looked at the Earthship biotexture and what it costs, you could get a nice size Earthship that was, good for a single family household at least. And its basic, was like 140,000, something like that. Now, these Earthships have gone up tremendously in cost. Now, of course, let me say this with the caveat that part of what diminishes the overall cost is if you take part in the process of building. So, to the degree that you're able to, you know, understand the mechanics and concepts being presented, you can be taught how to build one, and you can technically get a crew of your own, take in your brothers and sisters and family, and say, hey, we're going to build this Earthship. One very cheap way to do it is say, hey, I'm going to sponsor and pay for all of you to come with me to an actual class and take the course in building an Earthship. And now you have a whole crew who can help you put in practice what you learn in class. And, other than food and perhaps a place of lodging, just in case the world comes to an end, you will have a built-in crew that would be of minimal charge. So then all you got to do is find a landfill that's willing to give you every single used tire that they have on their lot, as well as thrown out bottles that are on the street. So then all you got to worry about is cement, solar energy, wind energy, and a water catchment cistern, which you too can also build. So that being stated, the concept of Earthship biotexture is, like I said, for all these reasons, the idea of a house being an organism is what got me excited about this form of of home building. The idea that you can build and live and exist within a home that, oh, how can I put it? Within a home that has everything necessary for you to live. In other words, if we had, let's say, for instance, a nuclear attack that took place on the United States, and you happen to live within the radius of the fallout, how wonderful would it be to live in something that you don't have to worry about um, it being easily crushed, or you would have to worry about, I have to go outside to obtain food of some sort. Well, the Earthship Biotexture gives you that. If you look here at this right here, now you don't see it in great detail. I think this is probably, we're going to keep looking. Okay, this is more decorative, so to speak, but you kind of can get the gist of the idea. So, part of the concept of what makes this home sustainable and livable, and again, excuse me, let me go back to, because I meant to show you the picture. This is Michael Reynolds. This is the man who came up with the concept, that revolutionized how I looked at homes, how I looked at what a home should be able to accomplish for you. And when we look at growing cost of utilities, the growing concern of, what political figures are trying to do concerning climate change, and regardless of where you feel or what you feel about the spectrum of climate change and what you feel should be done, the reality is, if we go forward with removing something like gas from people's homes, like ranges, like heating your home, if we begin to remove these renewable resources from being able to be used within our homes in climates where it gets extremely cold and power goes out, what is your electric stove going to do for you to keep you warm? What happens to that heat pump and everything that's a part of that electrical central AC unit and AC and heating unit that's going to help you? Or those coils in electric heating unit, how's that going to help you when the power isn't working? So, I'm all for saving the environment, but I don't believe that we should put the needs of the environment above life, human life. And so we have to then ask ourselves, what is a renewable and what is a reasonable form of home building that would allow us to be able to preserve life and minimize the use of these resources. And this option, this alternative, is the wisest decision. This home does not require a central AC unit or heating unit. It remains, no matter what the temperature is outside, 68 degrees throughout the house. Whether it's hot, whether it's cold. This is what you can look forward to. It is well insulated. Think about it. That is the option for if we're trying to minimize our impact on the earth, correct? So, back to our next discussion, which is, sorry, I had to digress a little bit there because I think it's important to give credit to whom credit is due. And when I say that credit is due to Michael Reynolds, who the Most High, for whatever reason, chose to bless this man. Now, I don't know anything about him personally and about his faith or his beliefs, but I do know that God is able to speak to all sorts of people, regardless of where they are on the spectrum of what they believe and who they believe in. And I just believe that this form of biotexture was a prophetic fulfillment or revelation of something that is very useful during a time when people are going to be in situations where they're completely dependent on natural gas and liquid propane or whatever it is that they're dependent on that requires a monthly uploading in order to keep it going. Anything that can be regulated, anything that can be controlled by man that is a part of preserving life should be kept at a minimum as much as possible. And so I'm gonna tell you a little bit about me. When I first looked at these homes, I'm like probably many of you. When you see structures like this, it doesn't grab you as being the most beautiful thing you ever seen. But when you really begin, and it's like the more it grows with you though, because the more you look at it and the more you think about the wisdom behind how it's built, and you think about the truly minimal cost over long stretches of time, it begins to help you re-examine your perspective about it. Okay, so many of you, like I said, how this Earthship or how these Earthships receive electricity, it is based on solar energy. Now, granted, that could be the wild card that could tear down the expense of the whole house, right? Because we do know that it costs a lot of money up front to get solar panels and lithium batteries. And so, yes, I see where that is definitely in a huge a huge expense, which you cannot get around, even with you having a whole crew of people who are going to help you build this Earthship, right? But this is what I want you to consider. Because even if, let's say, you had to, at minimal, you couldn't afford to get your electricity, you couldn't afford to get solar to work, it costs too much to buy the batteries, whatever your case may be. $30,000 a lot of money to come out, a lot of chunk of change to come out with at one specific time, especially when you still calculate the cost of whatever materials you're going to have to buy to build this, and the cost of taking yourself and a crew to the courses. Because look, we're going to go through the website, but I mean, if you really think about what it's going to cost, I mean, they're willing to teach you, but I assure you, academy expenses are not going to be cheap. So when you think about all of that, like I said, you can go here and it'll tell you how to sign up to take the courses and things like that. You can take it online and all that sort of thing. But keep in mind, again, tuition fee, $2,750. So multiply that times your crew that you want to bring, because let's be very clear. This is not something that you want to say you're going to be the mastermind behind, and you're going to be the one who's going to rely solely on what you could pick up in your one experience there. You're going to want other people who you know or who you want to work with you to be there to catch the things that you might miss. You know what I'm saying? You might be a little tired, and you might fall asleep or something for a few seconds and miss the part that's very important. And so that other person might not fall asleep at that time, so they can get that information. So the point I'm making to you is you want to make sure that you calculate that. So if I'm saying I need to have a crew of about 15 people to make this thing happen in a time frame that is reasonable, calculate your 15 times $2,750. Plus, the tires may be given to you for free, but let's be very clear. I think you're not going to necessarily want to work with just shovels. You may have to, get certain things like heavy tractors or something of that nature you may have to invest in or rent in order to, kind of get the landscape the way you want it. So I'm not wanting to ignore the logistical things that you have to do in the building of it. But and all of that, of course, that calculation begins to increase. And keep in mind that unlike your conventional homes, you also have to, even if you get through the permit process, unless you just happen to have hundreds of thousands of dollars, you have $200,000 or $300,000 somewhere sitting around in your bank that you can spend on everything that you're going to need for even just a basic Earthship, because the increase has gone up tremendously from the time that I looked at this, years ago, or at least a decade ago. So that being stated, Whew, you do want to do some research. Now, back to what I was sharing about this particular part of the home. As you can see, as we're looking at this window, this part you see right here is the only part of the whole home that is exposed to the outside element. I actually had a chance to see what happens to a house, to Earthship that is burnt, like fire. And the thing that was so amazing is the house was fully intact. The only thing that burned was this part of the house where you have your wood frame, where you have your windows, and that was all that a person would have to replace. Which, if you think about it, is a tremendous blessing because if you burn down your whole house, can you imagine what the expense is versus just having to replace windows and a frame? And then if you know how to do it yourself, you're just really basically out of materials and possibly a pizza too for your fees for hiring your family to help you rebuild. So that being stated, that's one part. But now let's look at this trees and let's look at the flowers. Look down here. I find this to be amazing. Now, if you check this out right here, what you see are trees right here. You can grow inside of this area. This is like a greenhouse, and the greenhouse is a part of the whole concept. So again, remember, picture the scenario. We have, thermonuclear war going on. Now, granted, at the point that is going on, you're not necessarily, especially depending on how close you are, you may want to have something like to protect your windows and your wood and that part of the process. The same way we do when a hurricane is coming, right? You put up whatever you need to put up on the windows, your plywood or whatever to protect your windows. Same thing will go here. Now, what you could do if you really want to make it protective is just like you have a garage door. Get a garage door, something that's built out of something that's made of something like a steel or like a shipping container type material, and make your own, like garage door that will come down and cover the entire front of your Earthship. I'm just thinking that to me makes a lot of sense. So that when, hey, there's this nuclear attack, you got to be under, you got to not have any windows and all of that. Your outside windows will protect that. The outside container that you use will protect your windows so that you are completely closed in. And the beauty of that is, look at all the space you have right here. And remind you, this is going to go across the whole entire front of your home. Let me show you. So for instance, look at this. So let me see if I can make this larger. So see how this covers the entire front of your home. So just imagine that happens. You can easily cover your windows. You have doors without, glass. If you have wooden doors, you don't got to worry about that. But you can cover your windows, but your food is inside with you. You see what I'm saying? So, hey, you got your fruit trees, because you can grow fruit trees in there, which means you got, especially trees that you have to trim them, because if a tree gets 40 feet naturally, well, then clearly, unless you have a 40-foot root ceiling, you're going to have to make sure it doesn't get 40 feet. So, yeah, of course, you have to do your maintenance. You got to cut it down, but it'll still produce lots of fruit, even if it does not, even if it's pruned so that it remains at maybe 7 feet. Or you can buy dwarf trees. Bottom line is, you can put it in there and you can have lemons, you can have oranges, you can have all the things you need to be able to survive. Not to mention you can have blueberry bushes. And not just fruit. You can have year-round, because this is a greenhouse. You can have year-round tomatoes. You can have, your spinach. You can have your mustard greens, your peas, whatever it is you want to grow. You will not starve, is my point. It's a house that takes care of you. So as you can see, this is why I'm so excited about the whole Earthship concept. Because in my estimation, shouldn't a house take care of us instead of us having to do all the taking care of it. I mean, I don't know about you, but I got enough to deal with having to deal with appliances that are faulty, having to deal with roofs that leak, having to deal with floors that sag, and having to deal with so many structural issues that over time can be an issue. Pipes that have to be replaced in walls because of issues with that. I mean, if you can minimize the amount of things that could possibly go wrong, that could add to not only your stress and your how can I put this? And to your pocket being short on a regular basis, then why not do that? So again, like I said, you can make it look however you want. If you don't like this color, pick another color. You know what I'm saying? If this style doesn't is not your fancy, try another style. But even if you can't find anything that looks just like what you want to picture as home, for me, it was like looking at the bigger picture. When I heard, and this was years ago, I'm not sure if it's the same, but I read that he can guarantee that your utility bill will be $150 a year. Man, it was like, forget how it looks. I can, in my mind, make this look as beautiful as I want it to look, even if it doesn't. I mean, look at this. To me, this is beautiful. But again, everyone has a different concept of beauty, right? But this is what I'm talking about. These are the things that, to me, you know, you have to pick your battles, and functionality is everything to me. Having something that I know is going to stand the test of time and function as it's supposed to, to me, should be a lot more important than it, being this grand showcase that is constantly giving me problems. It looks beautiful, but the upkeep and the maintenance can have me working for the rest of my life. So, that was one of the things that really impressed me. And then the other thing that impressed me is the fact that your water, the system he has in the home here, your water is recycled 4 times before it goes out, which means that it is an excellent way of renewing those resources, using it wisely. You build your own cistern that can catch the water. Now, of course, we know the biggest obstacle at this point is going to be, let's say there's a drought and you can't get any water. Now, that could be a major problem. And I admit, it's not a foolproof utopia, okay? There are going to be some things that could become an issue over time. And clearly, if your water and even your electricity is dependent upon rain or the heavenly bodies doing what it's supposed to do every day, then those are definitely some pitfalls that you have to consider. But I do believe that there are some workarounds with that. One of those workarounds is have a backup. You can still be on utility if you're living in an area where utilities are accessible to you. Or what you can do is you can make sure you build a large enough cistern that when it does rain, or cisterns, so that when it does rain, you're maximizing the amount of water you can collect, so that when the times of drought comes, then you have sufficient water for meeting your needs. Another option is you can take out one of the ways that it has to be recycled by using a compost toilet that does not require as much water. So there are ways we can reduce our dependency on certain things to make things more usable. Solar energy. Let's face it, most of what we need solar energy to do is essentially for the purpose of lights. That's the necessity, right? Of course, we like to have access to the internet. We like to be able to watch our favorite shows. But if push comes to shove, then we can entertain ourselves with what? A game of Uno or a game of Monopoly. And, just have to deal with reading a book. All of this is things that we can do. And then when we think about our need of the light, well, I mean, you're getting full light on one side of this whole house, right? So you really don't even need light until nighttime. Well, I mean, if we do what the scripture says, that night cometh when no man can work, and we actually sleep and rest at night, then we don't even need the light at night. And if we do, guess what? We can always light a candle. We can always have these other things in the event that our electricity goes out. The same thing we have to do if your regular electricity goes out. It's the same thing you have to think about if you don't have solar energy. So this is not a process that's completely um, foreign to us, right? But the whole point is that the home can save you. Now, let's that's background behind why I'm so excited about this trip. Now, of course, you know, again, I've never been in one. So I want to take you on the journey with me once I get there and share with you my perspective, to give you a full comprehensive review of what it smells like, what it looks like. Is it worth all the hype? Do I still feel the same way about it? What new things I've learned, take you through the Biotexture Visitor Center so that you can get an idea of uh, of how it works, so I can give you more details that I may not have been able to give you this time to prepare you for the journey. Now, let's do the rundown on the expense. Now, I am coming from Louisiana, okay, and we are flying. So I'm going to give you a breakdown on what everything is going to cost me, which I think is very important for us to look at. Okay, so let's first look at parking. I have to park my vehicle first. Of course, I can't calculate how much the expense is going to be for driving. So gas fluctuates. I can't tell you how much the actual gas cost me, but I am going to drive to the airport, which is 4 hours away from me. Once I get to where I need to go, then the cost to park my vehicle for the 5 days we will be gone is $36.37. Now, 2 tickets to go from Dallas, Texas to Albuquerque in 2023 was $277. That's for 2 people. That's no bells and whistles, and that's for just basically a personal item. So no extra bags and no guarantee that I'll be sitting next to my significant honey bunny. But we're going to work everything out the best way we can to try to make that a reality. Now, that being said, we're going to go to a rental car, because Albuquerque is not exactly next door to it's not exactly next door to Taos, or where the Earthship Biotexture Visitor Center is. So I'm going to give you the rundown, which caused me to say, hey, rent a car is the way to go. So going to Rome to Rio, one of my favorite places to look at when considering travel. So let's look at Albuquerque Airport, and let's look at Earthship Biotexture in Tres Piedras, which is near Taos, about 15 minutes drive from Taos, Mexico. So let's look at the distance, and let's look at what Rome to Rio tells us about the expense. So to take a train and bus, we could get there for $1 or $4, but who wants to spend 7 hours and 2 minutes to make that happen? So obviously that was not going to be the choice. Same thing with the bus, 7 hours, 4 minutes, $35. Who's going to do that? That was not going to be the choice either. So let's go to driving. 2 hours and 48 minutes. Bingo, we have it. About $25 in gas. And if you are a thrifty shopper, you may even find yourself with, bam, a good car at a great price for $119.25. Now that is for 2 days travel, because we don't need the vehicle for the entire trip. We only need the vehicle for going to Taos. We're going to spend 2 nights there, and then spend the rest of our time, in Albuquerque somewhere. Because again, the purpose of the trip is to go to the Earthship Biotecture Center. And the extra days was just necessary for me to get the best price on the airplane ticket. So, that being stated, it just gave us more time to explore what does New Mexico have to offer outside of the Earthship Biotecture. So, but all of this, mind you, is calculated on being able to experience this experience. So I want you to think about that should you decide to replicate this trip that I'm making. So now we have the Earthship Biotecture. It's $155 a night for the Survivor Studio as of 2023, and as of the season of 2023. Now, peak season, whenever that is, the price could be more. And according to the website, it is more. But since I'm not traveling during a peak season, which usually is going to be around your holidays, like Christmas, Thanksgiving, things of that nature, when people like to travel and they're out of work. So, because I'm going off peak season, the cost was $155 a night, and there's a 2-night minimum. So, 2 nights at the cost of $322.12 to have the survival studio experience. Now, they do throw in that free visits to the visitor center for being a rental guest, which I am grateful for because clearly that would be one of the things that would be my must see on the way to this Earthship Biotecture. Okay, where I am told I will be greeted by a friendly worker, and I will tell you about that experience as well. So now, in addition to that, of course, we have 3 other days that we will be still in Mexico. So then that costs us $250.85, which gives us a grand total for this trip of $1,005.59. Now, those of you who know me, here's the thing that's interesting to me about the whole thing is that I have traveled on average. It cost me about $900 per person to travel to Israel. That's including the very same things I'm talking to you about right now. Now, it's excluding the same things that is excluded here. Like, I don't know what the cost of food is going to be and the cost of gas and all those other things. But just to say, 900 per person is what I basically pay on average when you calculate everything to go to Israel. And this is what I'm paying. Now, of course, mind you, this is for 2 people, not for one. So essentially $500 per person to go somewhere within the United States. It's just food for thought. So it remains to see whether or not this experience will be worth the expense. But I look forward to sharing this journey with you and bringing you on this journey. And hopefully, if you are Hebrew and you are melanated and you're interested in looking at alternative living situations or communities, because this Earthship movement here is not just about one individual. The one thing that I appreciate about what Michael Reynolds has done is to share this concept in countries where this is the most and only sustainable option based on the things that they have accessible to them. And so he donates to those countries and encourages people to donate towards building earthships in places like Philippines and Indonesia and other places where they have issues like tsunamis and different challenges that can wipe out their community. So I think that is important that as we begin to see more things like, rampant fires in places, and we're beginning to see tornadoes and earthquakes taking place, that we begin to become more practical in our thinking. As well as if we're going to be looking at options for reducing our dependency on oil, on gas, and all of these things that we are looking outward of our country to meet the needs of the people within our country, that we begin to expand our horizons and look at ways that we can reduce our use of energy, but in a way that it does not bring psychological and physical harm to the people who live here. And I firmly believe that this form of living, this form of architecture, and this concept of building is one way of truly addressing so many different issues, including landfills. I mean, think about it. Instead of having tires just sitting out somewhere that's not being used, that's just taking up space and adding to a list of things not being used, thinking of a way to reuse those items in a way that is beneficial to humanity. The concept just seems awesome to me. Like I said, the research and the reality are two different things. And right now I am preparing for the reality of the experience. And with that being said, I hope that you will follow me on this Earthship journey. Thank you for listening to the Critique Travel Review in View that's suited for you.